Hello, everyone. Welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, aka Himvar. Today, I have another weekly update for you. This is Liam's Leapings number 53 for the 2nd of September, 2023. Happy September, everyone. It feels a little bit like fall here. I don't know about wherever y'all are at. We've had a very mild summer. I know a lot of people have had very hot summers. It's been really mild here. There was like 1 week in maybe early July that was like rather hot. Besides that, I mean, it's been hot, right? Because it's still summer, but it's been pretty enjoyable for the most part. But anyways, it feels like kind of fall. In fact, there's some trees that are changing colors, which seems ridiculous to me because it was August, but it's September now. So I'm just going to go over the books I read this week. I read again quite a lot, actually, kind of like I did last week. Um, I'm going to go through my stack of books over here. The first one's actually a book I didn't finish quite yet, The Silver Spike. I like having my four books I've finished on my thumbnail. And so I didn't finish this one on purpose because I had already finished four books, five, maybe even more if you look at it a certain way. And so I stopped reading this one, and while I'm listening to this one mostly actually, Silver Spike by Glenn Cook, and I'm going to I was listening to some other book, and the other book I was reading that I also haven't finished because of that, and I don't want to finish it right now is I have a random 100 yen coin here. Anyways, is Simplicius. I can't speak it. It's a tongue twister. Simplicissimus. That's it. By Grimmelshausen. I don't remember his whole name. The book's from the 17th century. Um, it's good. I like it so far. It's really charming in a way. It's a picaresque novel. So those are basically the two books I've read. Some of that I am not. I'll maybe about halfway through the Silver Spike, Simplicius at all. So hopefully I'll finish both of those next week. There's one other book actually I'm halfway through, and look, I have it on the second book here is Beowulf, translation commentary, translated by Tom Shippey and edited by Leonard Nydorf. I got this today, so it's a book I also got this week, obviously. That's by Upsala Books, which is Tom Shippey's new company, publishing company, house, whatever. I read everything up until the translation. And I read the first couple pages of the translation today, like right when I got it. Really good. Really looking forward to getting into the translation and then the commentary afterwards. It's cool because on the first page, if you go to skip the line for Atskillshefin Shathan Thratu Monagu Maithu Mayod Settler of Tea Egsedo Erla Sitan Araso Verschäft Funden. 6A Erla here. I don't know if you can see it. But that's an emendation that was highlighted in one of my favorite scholarly articles I've ever read by Nelson Jarine and Michael Drought. Off the manuscript itself says Errol, which it means Earl. It's often amended to Earlas because in context, Earl doesn't make any sense. It says basically overthrew the Earl. And so overthrew the Earls, Earlas makes a little bit more sense, but even that's a little odd. And so Erla, assuming Beowulf is a copy of an older text, of course, and whoever wrote this copy around the turn of the 11th century, turn of the millennium, probably didn't know what Erla was. Probably like someone messed up here, but it probably represents the Heruli, which are a neighboring tribe of the Danes. So, anyways, it was cool to see that that's included along with most of the other emendations you'd get in like Calibers. So, anyways, I'm really enjoying it. Tom Shippey is probably my favorite scholar, if I could have a favorite scholar, just because he's so good at basically everything. He's so good at like Beowulf scholarship, Anglo-Saxon stuff in general. He touches on archaeology, which a lot of philologists don't do. He's the Tolkien, basically. So it's awesome. And then, well, yeah, I guess I made a little progress in this book, but so let's see what's next, though. So I finished today Unicorn and Dragon by Lynn Abbey. This is actually a bind up. When I bought it, I thought it was just the first book, which is called Unicorn and Dragon, but it also has a second book, Conquest, which I found out today that Lynn Abbey does not have the copyright to. And so she will likely never finish the series, and it's incomplete. Supposedly least a third volume, supposedly up to five. Um, but this starts in 1065 in England, so right before the Norman Conquest, which obviously interests me, and I like Lenabi as an author. I didn't enjoy this as much as the Walensor books, um, the Wooden Sword. But also, yeah, if I enjoyed Conquest more. Um, and then I read finally Ibn Fadlan and the Land of Darkness, this Penguin Classic version. This map you might recognize if I hang it upside down at the bottom. And then at the top is Europe and Asia and the Middle East and stuff. And this is Arabs like golden age of Islam stuff right here, of exploring places. Well, like the Khazars, the Bulgars, and the Rus. The Rus being the predecessor of the modern Russian state, but the Rus, at least originally, were more of less Slavic. They were more Swedish Vikings ruling over Slavs. So you get some Viking stuff in here, like the raid on Seville, Seville. I don't know how this heck to say it actually. Sevilla. I don't know. It's in Spain presently, but anyways, yeah, some very interesting stuff. Ibn Fadlan's part actually only takes up like the first third. It's like the first of the three sections of actual translated text, and there's commentary, of course, as well. And then this is a St. Joshi's annotated supernatural horror and Lovecraft. This is an essay essentially, and it's annotated. The essay is from page 25 to 96, if I'm remembering correctly. I was meaning to read this essay anyways, but I read it for class. This is part of the Lovecraft class I'm in, kind of complicated. So I read it. And having this physical copy is really nice. This was only $8 for those interested. You can read the essay online. This will probably be my next fantasy essay video. We'll be going over this essay. I'll probably have my brother on in the video as well. So, but this is, I would say, the longest essay I've probably read for that as well. So, and it is the second oldest. The last one I read is the oldest, but beyond that, this would be the oldest. And then I read, next on the stack here, I read House of Assassins by Larry Correia. If you remember, I only got this last week. This is book 2 in Saga of the Forgotten Warrior. I didn't enjoy this one as much as book 1, but I did enjoy it a lot still. In fact, I started book 3, which I'll mention here in a second, and I just got book 3 a couple days ago. So House of Assassins, really fun. I like how they're like short-ish epic fantasy, more of a in reality what epic fantasy is in length, but not what you think of as far as lengthwise when you think of epic fantasy normally. And then let's see. One book, a couple things I read that I don't physically. I read Baldur's Gate by Philip Athens. I finished it. I mentioned it last week. I actually thought the novel was okay. It was rather short. It's not amazing by any means. It doesn't give you everything that's in the Baldur's Gate video game, since that video game could probably give you hundreds of hours. This novel is insanely short and very focused. And then I also read Robert K. Gordon's Beowulf. I wanted to get through another version of Beowulf before Shippies got here. It actually wasn't bad. I disagree with some of the choices. It's rather old. The translation is almost 100 years old, I think. But overall, it wasn't bad. I mean, you get the one thing that Shippy actually says in his preface is that most of it doesn't actually matter. Like they make a big deal about like how should we translate this word here when a lot of those words don't matter so much, right? You know what I mean? Like we think of poetry today, like being pithiness, every word. He says, I think should be like a pin in your backside or something like that. I don't remember exactly what he said, but like, but a lot of that stuff doesn't actually matter so much. I would prefer just to be able to read Beowulf in Old English and get it there. But I also read The White People by Arthur Machen. My first Machen story is, I'm feeling October, Halloween approaching, even though it's still a couple months away, essentially. So that was my first Machen story. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to The Great God Pan. I feel like I'll enjoy that one more. So yeah, we'll see. And then the next book I read physically, also The Willows. I read this for the Lovecraft class as well. I read the Machen because of the Lovecraft essay, and I've been meaning to read them for a while anyways. Now, The Willows is when I actually started a while ago. I read the first chapter a while ago, and then I finally read the whole thing. It's not very long. It's like 40 pages. It's kind of a novella, like very on the very, very low end of novella. And it's got willows that are kind of scary, even though the picture I have here doesn't have willow trees. But and it takes place on the Danube, I think. Could be misremembering that. I feel like it's the Danube. Yeah, Danube. Okay, so this was interesting though. It's kind of creepy. You might want to just read it um, if you want some classic horror from like 1907, I think. So, and then again, another one I mentioned last week. I read the first novel in this Gotrix and Felix omnibus bind up, which is Troll Slayer, and I enjoyed it. I actually was thinking about it a little bit after I finished, more than I thought I would, since I didn't have the best time reading it. And maybe that's because my expectations, I was going in hoping for some amazing buddy fantasy. And I'm a huge fan of Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and I even like, Royce and Hadrian and a lot of other companions in, just depending on what it is, right? I like companion fantasy, essentially. And I was hoping that it would be kind of like, this would be kind of like that, and it wasn't nearly as good. Just to be honest, the relationship is not nearly as good. Felix is like, he's on the back burner kind of, and but he's also the narrator, and Gotrek is like indestructible force of nature. But their brotherhood relationship is basically non-existent. Now I realize this is the first book, and I realize it'll probably get there, and so we have an chance of growth, which is cool, because a lot of times in these buddy things, we just get them as buddies, and that's just the way it is. You know what I mean? Even in Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, one of the stories was written rather late, is Ilmet and Lenkmar, and that's the story where they meet up, and they're essentially best bros from the beginning, which is just to show that it's meant to be kind of thing, right? It's not the case at all here. I imagine their relationship gets better in later books, so I am looking forward to reading the later books. But in the first book, I wasn't gripped, even though I'm completely okay with the format, essentially. So, but and that's something you read a lot in Sword and Sorcery, at least classically. So, anyways, reads. My internet connection is terrible here, so hopefully the video is not awful. I forgot to plug in my Ethernet cord. I don't know why the connection is so bad unless I plug in my Ethernet cord. I think it's StreamYard's problem, to be honest, because it's not bad on anything else. I think that's all I read. Let me double check. I did get one other book. That's not true. Okay, so I got Tower of Silence, and then I have my physical copy over there, but I have the dust jacket right here. I have Destroyer of Worlds. So I started Destroyer of Worlds today. I'm not that far in. Oh, I guess I could show you the back art, because the main art for these books is on the back, because Barnes & Noble didn't like the first cover enough to let it happen on the front. So you just get like a tiny bit of art in the front. And then Tower of Silence only came out this year. And there's the art, which is a little different than the other books, actually. So the Tower of Silence is rather short, but not much shorter compared to the other one, I guess. But I'm looking forward to reading those. But yeah, this week hasn't been bad. I remember I mentioned a job interview last week. I think that interview went well. I have no clue if I'll get the job. It's the only interview I had this week. I've applied for a lot more jobs. The job search is extremely anxiety-inducing. I've been on it for a couple. That's not a terribly long time, but I wish I had a job, or a better one, if that makes sense. So I had more money and I don't have to worry about that. But such is life. But I mean, I also want to be able to make sure I make good content, right? I got a couple of blog posts ready to go for my Forgotten Realms blog, because I was feeling in a good blogging mood yesterday, and so I wrote a couple blogs up. And I have an idea for probably this Wednesday's video. I think I'm just going to get rid of my wrap-ups entirely, because this Wednesday would be my wrap-up video for the summer months, since August is now over, and I think I'm just going to ditch it. I don't think I care enough. That's just not content I care to produce, if that makes sense. It doesn't seem worthwhile. Which I know a lot of people on BookTube make stuff like that. And in fact, I know some BookTubers that's basically all their content is what they read, or maybe joined with what they want to read. And I've seen this trend of what I want to buy a couple times, and I will be completely honest, I've seen it twice, and I've unsubscribed from both people. When I said saw like a to be bought list, I was like, that is not the type of content I'm here for. Anyways, I admit I subscribe to a lot of people and I don't hardly watch any of their videos. I like to support the people I know on BookTube. You know what I mean? and I like a lot of booktubers. But also for me, I want to make the content I want to make. And when I first started, I kind of was sifting through content I want to make. And part of me feels like my reviews could be better as well. I mean, part of the idea with my reviews is I want short videos so they're accessible. Nothing's distracting you. You don't see my face. There's no reason to see my face in those videos. And also just to get content out there, not so I can have more content on my channel, but so you can hear about books that a lot of the books I read don't have much. Some have none, like anyone talking about them basically on YouTube. And so I wanted that. Now I could definitely open up my literary criticism skills I learned in school and make those longer, make them more in depth, make them more of a, more of an analysis. Um, and maybe I should, since most people on BookTube probably don't even know how to do like a critical analysis or even know what something like formalism is, which is probably the most basic form of analysis. And so like I try to, put like little, like maybe a sentence in my review of something that's like not just my thoughts. So you can do a reader response analysis as well, but a reader response analysis implies that you know what formalism is. I feel like most people in BookTube don't know what formalism is, and then you can't really do a reader response, which is what most people on BookTube are in a way doing. But it's the same. At the same time, a review is not the same thing as like a recension. And or an analysis, you know what I mean? So the reason that I bring this up is because I'm looking at the next review I need to film, and that is The King of Elfland's Daughter, and I did a big analysis. I did a big portfolio on that book for a class, and I'm like, do I want to? I did a multicultural analysis on it, mostly because I thought it was interesting. Though there's a lot you could do, like mythic would make sense, and the formalist idea and historical. But the multicultural also gets some of the historical stuff in there. So anyways, this is me kind of rambling. At the same time, I don't know if I'm qualified to like make a video on like what these literary criticisms contain. Maybe people will find that useful. I know I saw one guy make a video on literary criticisms before, and he mentioned formalism, historical, biographical, psychoanalytic, feminism, Marxism, like that. And those are the most popular ones, right? He's mentioning all the popular ones. So he did it. I don't need to do it. Maybe I could just share it to my channel, but I don't know anything in my community tab. So yeah. And at the same time, like, I made a video that mentions romanticism a lot, but I haven't made a video describing to you what romanticism is. I don't know if I feel qualified to do that. I just feel like I kind of know what romanticism is, which that means if I know what romanticism